I've spent a lot of my life sort of being self-effacing and self-mocking and, and ho-hum, and I'm I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of having come up with the idea. I'm really proud of building the company. I'm really proud of the culture that I've built. I'm really proud of the people that work with me because they're the ones that keep it going, and they're the ones that are doing, the success that we've had is entirely team.
You're listening to Creatives Prevail, unraveling the stories of creative professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creatives Prevail. I'm your host, Mike Zimmerlich, and my next guest is Mark Steiner, co-founder of GigSalad. In this interview, we discuss how he went from the film industry to building one of the biggest online marketplaces for performers, entertainers, and event services. We also talk about who gets booked the most on the platform and why. Let's get into it. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great, Mike. Going super. I'm glad to be here.
Good. I'm glad that you're on the show too. I always appreciated you actually reached out to me, and we've have a mutual colleague, Dave Cool. Shout out to Dave. I've known Dave for a long time, and he was one who set this arrangement up. And I did want to also say too, I always appreciate because the fact that we had a chance to talk prior to this interview, and it was so great to connect with you. And I don't always get that opportunity with the guests that are on the show. And I wanted to first say how much I really did appreciate our conversation that we originally had.
Oh, I did too. It could have kept going. I think both of us maybe had someplace we had to get to. Otherwise, we might still be talking.
Yep, exactly. So, but now we're going to be talking today about you. And it was funny because you were asking me questions about myself, and that I said, let's save the questions for you for the show itself. And I want to start by asking you, what was the very first job that you ever had?
Short of shoveling sidewalks and raking leaves and mowing lawns, like the first, because I was doing that as young as I could hold a rake, or push snow. The first job that I went out to do was either as a busboy, or as a gas station attendant in New Jersey, where I'm from. And to this day, you can't pump your own gas. So when you roll up to a gas station, there's an attendant there that pumps gas. And I was pumping gas and busting tables at least by the time I was 16. And it might have been earlier. It could have been 14 or 15. Child labor laws be damned. I was doing it. I was working. So, those were the first two jobs. I always had work. I worked at a bowling alley, and I was a waiter. I used to stock shelves in the third shift at a grocery store. But those were the first ones: gas station attendant and busboy.
It sounds like that you really had a lot of work ethic in yourself at a very early age. Is that something that runs in your family?
Yeah, my parents I got an allowance, but there was chores attached to it. It was very transactional. It wasn't just here's money. There was an expectation of certain things to be done. And yeah, my parents are dyed in the wool, Western Pennsylvania. Dad was a farm boy, and mom was first generation Italian immigrant, and just I learned to be the worker I am today because my parents it started there. You work hard, and you should be rewarded for it, and not just working hard. Take pride in your work well.
I agree. And I think that resonates right through your entire life and through your entire career is that you like you said, you succeed and try to do the best you can in the work that you do. And you hope that gets recognized by other people, and that you continue to do so and put yourself at the caliber that you want to portray yourself, and be, again, as you mentioned before, be prideful of the work that you do.
Right. Absolutely.
One of the things I found really interesting, so, busboy, gas attendant, and so forth, and of course we'll get to GigSalad, but I found that you weren't in tech. Like you actually got started in the film industry.
Yeah. I mean, so throughout my young years, I dreamt of being a rock star. I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be performing. I wanted to be, um, and wanted to be famous, frankly, and, and those were the things that I equated to fame and popularity, was being able to be an artist. And, so my, I played music. I was definitely a student of film, and, you know, watched television, and but just watch it. But it wasn't just an observer, and it wasn't just entertainment to me. I was delving in. I was becoming a part of the story. I was finding a part, and I was definitely fantasizing and dreaming about doing that as a career one day. And, and then by the time I got into high school, I sort of lost my focus. I wasn't really very grounded. I was, I was working on being popular then. That's what I wanted to be in high school. I wanted to be popular. And, I succeeded by being the party boy. And it sort of took me off track. I was a little directionless. I wasn't a great student by way of me not paying attention, and, not being able to focus. Late in life ADHD diagnosis helped me to understand that. But what ended up happening was, I'm in high school and my other friends, are talking about college, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to college. That would just be brutal. Um, so my school offered a lot of vocational courses, and one of those was the culinary arts. And I always had a love for food, and I thought, there we go, I'll become a chef, or I'll, own a restaurant. And so I did this culinary arts program. I got accepted to Johnson and Wales, which at the time was one of the top culinary schools in the country. It was CIA, Culinary Institute of America, and, Johnson and Wales. And I was going to Johnson and Wales up in Providence, Rhode Island. And I did my senior musical and thought, that brought me back. That was like my whole life came back into focus at that point. It's like, oh yeah, there's that thing that I didn't know how I would ever get to. But doing this senior musical, not only reminded me, but emboldened me, because I was really well received in doing that by all my friends. It made me even more popular in some ways. Of, wow, Steiner went and did that. Steiner was in the music, the high school musical. And so at that point, it was, I'm going to New York. I'm going to move to New York, and I'm going to try to get a lucky break in the movie business. And, I auditioned for and got a part in this national touring children's theater troupe. And so I got in, did my run. It was about 6 months. When it was over, I said, okay, I'm moving to New York. And, as my life is often gone, I got the lucky break. I met somebody who gave me a job in the movie business, and I never looked back. It was a 10-year run plus working in movies. And, I did production. I did various production jobs, and then found my way to running a craft service company, which comes back to that culinary arts program. Craft service being the person that feeds the cast and crew on movie sets. And, I was able to use that skill that I had learned, and then I got a part, on a film, and got my SAG card, and did some acting, and ran my craft service company, and just sort of stumbled my way through. We were talking about the Walter Mitty movie. That's kind of how my life would go, as I would find doors would open for me. I was very, very intentional, and there's a bit of manifestation in that. I knew what I wanted, and I would start walking towards it. And doors and windows would open, and I would go through them.
Incredible. And it sounds like that you got what you were looking for, and to a degree. I mean, it sounds like that you were still able to get opportunities for acting, but you are also doing quite a bit behind the scenes as well, as you mentioned, for crafting, production, and things like that. And
Yeah.
as like we know that's often a lot of times how you get those larger roles, is that you get the insider baseball knowledge about how the industry works. You build connections and networking, which I say a lot on this podcast, and kind of build those things along the way. So, and you've been doing this, you did that for 10 years. So that's, it sounds like you, like, I don't want to say you made it, but like, it sounds like you found what you were looking for. You found your dream job.
Yeah. It goes back to that work ethic. I got my break, and the first job I did, I was an office PA. I was just a runner for the production office. And then the next job, they needed a production assistant in the construction, in the that part of the arts department, in the construction of building sets. I was a PA there for a while. And then I got an on-set PA job. And then I got, and there was definitely, several productions of each one of these. Then I'm an on-set PA. And then I got into the locations department, and that was on the movie When Harry Met Sally. And that was the movie where I was working in locations, and the locations oversees the craft service, and they weren't happy with the craft service person. And I raised my hand and said, I could do that. I know food. And that was the beginning of me having a long and beautiful career. And that would have happened in so I moved to the city in 84. I graduated high school in 84. I moved to the city shortly thereafter. And I'm bouncing around doing these various jobs on movies and TV shows, and working hard, networking, meeting people, finding out, once I met people that I liked and they liked me, they'd hire me on the next job. And that's how it goes in the business. And then I found my place. I found the place where I could own it. This was my sweet spot. This is where I could shine, and that was craft service. All along, for me, I'd talk about, I really want to be an actor. I really want to be an actor. But I was working. I wasn't going to acting class. I wasn't auditioning. I was stupid enough and naive enough, possibly arrogant enough. I don't think there was arrogance. It was just naivete that I thought, I'm just going to get discovered. Somebody's going to walk up to me and say, kid, I got a part that's perfect for you. And then off I go. And it doesn't work that way very often. And it didn't work for me. Well, it kind of did. It was on the film where the director, Susan Seidelman, on She Devil, the movie I did right after When Harry Met Sally, Susan knew I wanted to be an actor. And she threw me a line at the end of the film. She's like, Mark, and you've done such a great job on craft service. The producers were very happy with me. Susan was very happy with me. I think the cast and crew was very happy with me. And for that, she rewarded me by giving me a line in the movie. And that gave me my SAG card. And then from that point on, I kind of bounced back and forth between doing bit parts here and there, and then lots of extra work and background work and running my craft service company. And I did that all the way through until I finally ended up moving out of the city to Connecticut in 1994. And kind of said, well, it's a long commute on top of very long days. I'm kind of done. And that was that.
So when did you do after that point then? So you decided, okay, I'm moving to Connecticut, and this is not really for me anymore.
So I was married by that point. 1991, I got married. 94, we got married in a church. Rather, a lot of people get married in church. I met my wife in a church, and we moved to Connecticut to plant a church up around Yale, New Haven. There was a bunch of students going to Yale, and we thought we're going to build a church up there. And so we moved. We were invited to be a part of that church planting, and we moved. And my wife had, she's a concert violinist, and she was a violin teacher. She got a job teaching Suzuki violin in just outside of New Haven. So that was sort of gave us, one of us had a job at least. And I was goofing around at the time with this concept. I had created a plush teddy bear, and that was this colorful, rainbow colored teddy bear I called Rainbow Friends. And for me, it was representative of, I wanted to teach children to love all the colors. It was a statement against racism and bigotry. And there was this pen pal component to it. Like, kids would fill out this card, this sort of profile card. They'd mail it in, and I would match them up with with other children that were as different from them as possible. And through pen pal, they would get to know other cultures. And it had a nominal run. It was kind of, I won some awards. We sold some bears, but I did all of this on credit cards. And the credit card bills were starting to stack up, and I found myself needing to get a job. And so I got a job as a booking agent. A friend of mine in New York City worked for this small boutique agency called Phoenix Talent Agency, and they booked big bands. It was owned by the Glenn Miller Orchestra, the old swing big band. Glenn Miller Orchestra is still around, and till this day, has been, even since the day Glenn died. There's always been a band that kept going, and I worked for them, booking the Glenn Miller Orchestra and a bunch of the other ghost bands that were still around. Quite busy, even in the 90s. There was still a ballroom circuit, believe it or not, where in the Midwest, where big bands would pass through, and there'd be enough of the generation that grew up with that music was still going out and dancing. So I worked for that small boutique agency for 7 years, booking, and I started doing jazz artists and nostalgia oldies acts, and whatever I could book, I would book, because I started really finding my niche was performing arts centers and places like that. And I was a booking agent for 7 years working for somebody else. And then I thought I was burned out from the business and just in general. And I got an opportunity to go work for a friend of mine who's a very famous and prolific architect in New York City named Rick Cook. Cook plus Fox you should look up. Everybody should look up Rick Cook's work. And I worked for him for about 3 months doing office managing. And as much as I love architecture, I missed the business. I missed music. And I went and started my own agency. I went and started Steiner Talent. I left there and went and started Steiner Talent, and kind of the rest is history. Shortly after I started Steiner Talent, GigSalad started. The idea of GigSalad started percolating in my head. I started conceptualizing this idea of create a marketplace, something different from an agency, because this was around 2003. And
that's important to have that context about being 2003, because back then these type of ideas weren't commonplace, right? Correct. It's not like nowadays where there's a marketplace for everything. This was a relatively new concept of using the internet to connect people in this particular way.
That's exactly right. Yeah, good. Yeah, because the marketplaces, Uber wasn't invented yet, Airbnb wasn't invented yet.
This is before
know,
Facebook, people. This is
that's
before Facebook.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah. So to be the connector between parties, and it was just a happy, again, it's this Forrest Gump sort of Walter Mitty. I launched my website, my Steiner Talent website. These parties are trying to reach that. People are reaching out to me through my website, through phone calls, entertainers and performers looking for representation, looking for gigs, wanting to be listed on my roster that they were seeing on this website. And then there was event planners looking for talent that were reaching out to me because Steiner Talent was popping up on searches. People were putting in talent agencies, I assume, talent representation, whatever early search terms would have been in, as you know, things are starting to shift from the yellow pages to the internet, and we just happened to be right place, right time, great idea, didn't invent the idea. There had been a company out there since 97 doing this early on. And they were the only ones really doing it. And when the concept came to me, when the muse came to me, I thought it was, I don't know if there's anything out there like this, but we soon found out there was. And what you do, you look at your comparisons, you look at your competition, and you start to build and, decide, okay, there's aspects of that, that works. I like that. That should be a part of us. Not so much that thing. I don't want to do it that way. And, it's not very pretty what they've put out there. And my co-founder was a designer by trade. He went to FIT in New York City. And so he was a graphic designer, and he had started dabbling with designing websites around 2001. And he designed my website, the Steiner Talent website. And then he and I started talking about this GigSalad idea, this GigSalad concept. And off the building we went.
I mean, that gets me very excited because that reminds me of my time starting to build platforms like this. And from personal experience, I can attest of how challenging that is, especially back then, because there's no Squarespace, there's no WordPress or anything along those lines. You have to do, for the most part, everything from scratch for the most part.
That's right.
And not only that too, it's also about getting the word out there. And that's very different too, because with the talent agency, sure, you have Google search, but you also have a set roster that you are essentially representing, right? And then looking for, event planners to reach out to you essentially through site and obviously through referrals, word of mouth, things like that too.
That's right.
But building a platform though, that's an entirely different beast. I mean, because that you're not talking about scale. That's a very different thing in comparison to representation. You're talking about scale now, because the only way that a platform like that can work is that if you have scale on both levels, that there has to be enough supply, meaning the service providers and entertainers. But then on top of that, you have to also have enough demand to warrant them for signing up onto the platform. So you have to have enough demand from event planners who are actively looking for that type of work. So was that also through search, or were you doing other things to help bring that attention to the platform?
Entirely search.
Wow, entirely search.
And word of mouth. It was word of mouth. And how much word could I be producing? As a booking agent, I was known. Our agency was known. We were a niche agency, dealt with a very specific talent type, a very specific genre. But I was known. I used to go to all the PAC conferences and, APAP, et cetera. But I was a middle broker, a booking agent, that, just for the distinction, talent agents represent talent. Booking agents, I represented the buyers. Buyers came to me, promoters, producers, venue operators. And I was their liaison. I was the connector between national touring acts. When I left Phoenix Talent Agency and expanded my roster, I had formed relationships with, at the time, was William Morris, which is now William Morris Endeavor, Creative Artists Agency, CAA, ICM, International Creatives. It was like I was somebody that was relied upon to go and broker a date on a venue's behalf and be able to do that at a fee that I could still put in at 10% on top, a premium on top of whatever they were paying for the talent to justify my services. And that's what I did. I did it for colleges. I had college and university clients, fairs and festivals, performing arts centers, as I mentioned. But the point is, I was working with headliners. I wasn't working with local regional talent. That wasn't what I did. Even though my wife at the time she was playing, she was doing wedding gigs. She was doing corporate gigs as a concert violinist. As a violinist, she could do strolling work. She could do quartet work. So I was familiar with it. And then I had a lot of artists around me. I knew artists, local regional artists. But when I launched, all I had was to be able to say, hey, I have this platform, and people seem to be finding me all over the country, mind you. I was getting reached out to everywhere as people were doing this search and finding Steiner talent. So I said, I think what we should do is create a directory. We'll get these artists to sign up on this basic one page. People find the talent, and hopefully they'll connect over there. The event planners will find whatever this site's going to be called. They'll find that, and then I can get back to Steiner talent business, and we'll see what happens. And this is what happens. 23 years later, I folded, in 2011, I folded Steiner talent into the common interest of GigSalad after our official launch in 2007. And everything we made from 2007 until 2011 went back into the business, just building the business. We had been hiring people, we're paying them, we bought a building, we were, on and on. But Steve and I didn't really take a draw. My co-founder didn't take a draw until 2011. So we were at 44 years.
4 years.
Yeah, Steiner talent paid me, Tetra Design paid him, and that's the way we build it. Bootstrap. We put in total investment early on, a couple $1,000s between us. We back in the day when it was Rent-A-Coder, we went from, Steve had a next door neighbor that was a rocket scientist, literally a rocket scientist. And at night he was moonlighting, designing websites. So we had him work on the first iteration. Then we hired a guy. Then we hired somebody from Rent-A-Coder, and this went on. We had a beta version up there as early as 2004, and for 3 years we bopped around until we finally hired our first full-time developer out of college, out of UNCW. Young guy, gave him a little equity early on. Like, hey, come work for us. Well, here, we can't pay you a lot, but we'll give you some equity. And Locke is now my sole partner. He and I bought out Steve in 22, and we just had our best year ever. I mean, we just had the most incredible year ever. It was hockey stick growth over this past 6 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially for a business that's been around for quite a while now. I mean, even going from let's say 2007, where essentially you said officially launched. I mean, I just want to make sure that people understand that the comparison here, right, is that there was a time about 4 years, give or take, where it was essentially in beta for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was testing the waters, and before it was officially launched.
Right.
And now you see hockey stick growth from 2007 to essentially when this podcast is recorded in 2026.
Right. Yep.
That's quite an achievement.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm really proud of it. I'm giving myself permission to be really proud of things these days. In my older age,
You
Mike,
should.
I've spent a lot of my life sort of being self-effacing and self-mocking and and ho-hum, and I'm I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of having come up with the idea. I'm really proud of building the company. I'm really proud of the culture that I've built. I'm really proud of the people that work with me because they're the ones that keep it going, and they're the ones that are doing, the success that we've had is entirely team. I mean, I just have an amazing team.
Speaking of which, I do want to point this out, and that right before we started this call, found out that the site was down, and which I know over the time, which I know is like probably something you're very much used to at this point in time. But I want to tell it, like, the reason why I want to emphasize this is, first of all, how much trust you have on with the team. You, like, before we started, you were calm, collected, saying it's out of my hands. I trust my team; they're going to take care of this. Where many founders are going to be pulling out their hair and freaking out and helicoptering over their entire team to figure out what's going on. And you just have full faith and trust that your team's going to get this taken care of. They're going to figure these things out, even though like the entire site is down at the moment. And in addition to that, still we're like, yeah, we're not going to reschedule this interview. We are still going to go ahead. And I just want to say how much I admire that from you, that to have not only that trust, but also that confidence that I would say that tranquility, if you will, of that it's not, it'll be taken care of. It's not a problem. We I trust my team. We're going to get those things figured out, and then we'll continue forward. And I want to say how much I admire that aspect of yourself.
Thank you, Mike. I love that. I love that word. I love tranquility. I've worked really hard to have that present in my life. A calm, cool, collected spirit of everything's okay, and everything really is okay. I mean, life. It's easy to look around and choose to stress. We can allow anxiety to take hold about the state of the world, the state of our personal lives, down to the micro, the macro, and I am a very fortunate person that's worked. I've worked hard for it, and I have realized it. To just say this is a thing, and what can we do about it? Just starting there. What can we do? If there's something that can be done, then do it. If there's nothing that can't be done, then don't worry about it. And in this case, there's not a lot I can do. There never is, because the smartest people are in that other room taking care of it, kind of thing. And I do have an incredible team, so that helps. It comes with time. I think it comes with time and practice, and you see if you look back over your life and you say, those things I fretted about, those things I worried about, where did it get me? And most of the time, it never came to fruition. It never materialized the way I thought it would. So what am I doing? Anyway, thank you, Mike, for that, because it's what I'm living for. I'm living now. My goal in life is to live like this, really, just to keep it really level, keep things in perspective.
I do want to shift topics to the other side of the platform. So besides the behind the scenes, or behind the curtain, if you will, to the entertainers and performers and the service workers that all use GigSalad. And just kind of carry out, first I wanted to mention this. One of the things that I found was really interesting was the most in demand on the platform,
Mhm.
which, from what I understand, is Santa Clauses and mariachi bands.
The number one thing that we are searched for is mariachi. Mariachi bands all year. It's not just Cinco de Mayo. It's all year. Mariachi is the most sought after category. We have 500 categories or so on GigSalad. About half of them are music related.
Wow.
And then the rest are other performers or entertainers or the service providers, like you mentioned. But yeah, mariachi is number one. And then in the season, which starts the holiday season starts about September. So day after Labor Day, the searching and the booking begins, and people are looking for book their Santa Clauses, and we're the number one Santa Claus booker in the world. So
Incredible.
yeah, I think we have enough. Well, you can never have enough Santa Claus, but I think our Santa Clauses get plenty of work. They're not hurting for work. Mariachi bands, however, Mike, if you and I started a mariachi band right now, we would become filthy rich because we'd never stop
Really?
working. Oh God. Yes, I'm not
Wow.
even kidding. We need mariachi bands. If you're a musician out there, figure out mariachi in your repertoire and get yourself some beautiful costumes and get on GigSalad and you shall work a lot.
That's incredible. And you never think about that. I know GigSalad being in the music industry that, for, musicians in general, right? Obviously for rock, but all kinds of different genres. But never did I think, and obviously mariachi bands, you think of like weddings and things like that too, but not to that degree where I hear that quite often from cover gigs. So one of the artists that I represented had a cover band that was that's still to this day very successful.
Right.
And and I know how constantly busy that they are at being
Sure.
cover bands.
Sure.
But I don't think always of mariachi bands specifically
Right.
in that particular way. But that makes sense because that covers so much. It's not just weddings, but it's like corporate. It's birthdays. It's so many things.
Quinceaneras, all of it. Yeah, it's our culture is changing, and I love it. I love living in a multicultural society, and I love the Latino culture. And I love mariachi music. We've actually been sponsors of some different conferences and conventions and trade shows. And whenever we can control who we book, if they leave it up to us and just say, hey, we just want something exciting, we want something fun, we're booking a mariachi band. Because they just are. They're just it's a guarantee that people will stop and listen and move, and it's great.
So besides mariachi bands and Santa Clauses, for others, what have you seen other service workers and performers do that keeps them busy, that keeps them getting booked gigs on the platform? Is there anything else that you have seen that are attributes that they've included, or anything along those lines that help them consistently get gigs?
Yeah, I think well, you referenced it. In the mainstream world of what people want, what they know often. So pop music, cover music. Whether it's a themed party. It's a certain era. Hey, we need an 80s tribute band. We need a 90s tribute band. We need a Michael Jackson. It's that's what's popular and known is often the case. However, there's all the genres are there. So whether we just need a quiet jazz combo in the corner. It's just background ambiance music. People aren't going to be stopping necessarily, and that's not the intention. It's just to create the atmosphere. Or it might be a classical music. It's always an easy one, If it's a dinner party, What's nicer to have some beautiful classical strings, playing in the background kind of stuff. My advice to entertainers is diversify, be adaptable. I can appreciate that as an artist, especially as take a singer songwriter, somebody that wants to create and perform. I respect that. I get it. You're potentially limiting your opportunity for exposure. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly plenty of gigs where it doesn't matter what music's being played. They just want to have music there. So you can play your stuff, throw in a cover here and there. Or, what's the reverse of that is true. Get hired to play the background and covers, but throw your own song in there every 15 minutes. No one's going to notice. No one's going to, no one's going to care, but I think being as an artist and being as a musician, I respect those who can pick up an instrument and play anything and feel good about it, because it's music, and music is music is music. And so if you can, if you want to work, if you're looking for gig work, creating more options for yourself is being able to do more. And that's just sort of in general. Same applies to other artists. If you can do, once you've mastered one skill, go play around with something else. You play one instrument really well, go try another. That's it. I mean, there's also an argument to be said, like, no, just be really good at your one thing, and work comes from there too.
I've seen it go both ways.
That's
And
right.
that's why I don't think I think it's whatever you find works for yourself. I've seen incredibly successful original artists that started in having a cover band that paid the bills while they were also doing their original material. And in fact, that in many cases I've seen where they use their experience being a cover band doing corporate gigs and actually helped to launch their original project as well, because of
Exactly.
the practice that they put into it, and then also the investment they were able to do as well. So I have seen that. I've also seen others that just doubled down on their original and been able to make that work too. And so I don't think there is, I think the word diversify is extremely important and applies to both, because even if you're doubling down on original, the ones that I find do that, they understand the entire vertical of what it takes to be an original artist. They understand how to do production. They do the songwriting aspects of it, as well as the performance. And even if they are not excelling in those areas, they at least understand, they will intern at a record label, right, and get the experience there to understand how that side of the business works. So the ones that I find are generally successful there are the ones that diversify their knowledge and their skill sets, so they understand every single aspect of it.
That's right. That's a great point, Mike. And the business side too. Understand, know how to do the books, or at least know how to look at the books. Understand when a booking happens, all that goes into it, the cost, the budgeting. That's a great point. Yeah. As an original artist, there are ways to stretch, to test that other side of the brain. You're not just, you can be a creative and delve into the left side a little bit and learn strategy, and learn business, learn the recording, etc. It's too easy these days. Everything's too easy not to at least dip your toe in and learn enough. Learn the language.
You never know what you're going to feel passionate about. I mean, look for, you mentioned yourself about how you, when you were in high school, when you were young, you wanted to be famous. You wanted to be known, in that way. And I can say that you're famous now for GigSalad, but you were wanting to be famous for, for being an actor and being a movie
Right.
star and things like that.
Right.
And you found your passion in the production end. You found your passion in the industry in a completely different way, in the bookings and in all these other areas. And yeah, you still had that itch, but you were also able to find it in craft services, right? You found your passion in other areas because of it. And again, you were able to adapt and diversify yourself and got all these opportunities. And I think that's the most important thing, is that I think it's important to have that drive and that passion, but allowing yourself to I guess meander, if you will, but to go to meander to where that drive and passion ultimately leads you, and that you sometimes where you land is not where you expect it to be at all, but you found a new sense of fulfillment and joy in that area that you never expected to be in.
Yeah, that's a great word too. That's good, Mike. I like that. There's a meandering. There's sort of a wandering, and you stop and be curious. And even, give things a try. It's as important to know what you do like and what you're good at and what you don't like and you're not good at, and that, going back to GigSalad, that is how we built it. I surrounded myself with people that compensated for and covered all of my various weaknesses, the things I wasn't good at, and there was a lot of them. And I found people to do those things, and I found people that found their place at GigSalad where they shine now. It wasn't even necessarily always. I found the right people. I found people that were hungry, found people that were passionate, were interested in the industry, and a lot of people came in. If they weren't in development, they often came in the customer and what we call our customer happiness department, customer service, right? And they learned the nuts and bolts of the business, and they've dealt with customers, they dealt with our clients, the end users, the event planners. And while they worked and they saw the different facets, oftentimes they saw a place where they could fit in. Many times they invented a place where they could fit in. Like, hey, there's this specific thing that I think you're not doing, but we should be doing. We need this. They made a role for themselves, and it's a place where they shine. And sure, GigSalad keeps plugging along because we just kept building, and finding finding the right people, and then making sure that they're on the right seat of the bus,
Oh, I wanted to, we're going to start wrapping things up here. I did want to talk about, though, what's coming up for you, or what's new. So I understand that you also launched something that's outside of GigSalad not too long ago.
Yeah. Excited about this one. So over the past, since 20, I've been an empty nester since 2020. My youngest went off to college. I spent a couple years bopping around, meandering, as it were, going to music festivals, having fun, traveling a lot. Found myself not completely fulfilled from the experience. It was great. It was fun. But then I thought, I'm not being creative, though. I want to be creative. And I started to find projects that I could be creative in. And so I have a couple startups I'm working on. I have a social gaming app that maybe we talk another time. I'll tell you more about that. I got another startup I'm working on with somebody that we're going to try to develop entirely on. We're going to build it on AI entirely. And then, so that's about tattoos. And then, but what I did do is on my birthday, on March 10th, I launched my own personal website called thinkupon.com. Thinkupon.com, and that's built on WordPress. That's a place where I'm going to be blogging. It's going to house all my podcasts. It's going to house there'll be a link there for this podcast when it finally comes out. So the places I've been a guest on, And I've also been co-hosting with two others a podcast of my own called Big Ideas. And that's just three of us ranting and talking about riffing, talking about life and various subjects and topics. But I would love for people to go to thinkupon.com, and that's the place where you can see and hear and all things Mark Steiner, in case you wanted to know more. And if you
It's
don't,
amazing. Yeah, we'll
No,
we'll definitely make sure that's in the show notes. Absolutely.
thanks.
All right, so I have a couple of fun questions for you. So the very first question I have for you was, you mentioned your love for film. So what was the last film that you saw in theaters?
It was yesterday. I go as often as I
okay.
want. I just signed up for Alamo, the Alamo cinemas, and so I'm now a yearly annual subscriber to that. Carrie and I went and saw Normal, and I encourage people
What's
to
that?
go. It's Bob Odenkirk. Did I pronounce that? I always stumble on
Yeah,
his.
I'm Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, I saw something about that. It looked like very similar to Nobody, but I was
Yes.
kind of curious if okay, so very similar to Nobody. Okay, gotcha.
Very similar, and enough differences that it was entertaining, very sensational sort of violence, and not. It's not my number one go-to sort of film, but it was very sort of escapish and a lot of sort of very vigilante, sort of like you just are so hoping that the bad guys get taken care of. And I love, there's something about the Bob Odenkirk character, which is, the sort of everyman sort of stumbling through life and, dealing with some sort of major life issue while he's being exceptional, being exceptional in a very simple sort of way. It was great. So that was yesterday afternoon.
You ever booked anybody on your own platform, and you don't say who, but what was it for? Have you ever booked for yourself personally? Through GigSalad.
Oh, funny. Oh, sure. Yeah, a lot. We do, our own GigSalad parties. Yeah, we'll use it. We use the platform as often as we can. We hire people. We'll hire when we do sort of sponsorships and partnerships and collaborations. That's all. We'll always do it with that in mind. We're as often as we can. We'll do sort of in kind, and our in kind portion is we'll hire and pay for somebody off of GigSalad, and as often as we can do that as possible. We've done that at film festivals. We've done it at conferences and conventions and trade shows and personal parties, our own parties, our holiday parties. We've had walk around, stroll around, magicians, palm readers, bands, musicians, on and on. Oh yeah.
That's awesome. All right, last question for you. If you were only able to give one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Oh, I hope it doesn't sound cliche in this day and age. It is, it's kindness. It's in and around kindness and love. It's more than kindness. It's love, and love, it's Corinthians 13. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. To love people, love your fellow man, love yourself, love. It is all that counts. It is all that matters. If we love, all else, nothing else, all else is fine. All else goes well. And I have love in all the areas of my life. You're going back to what you said about tranquility, Mike. I have tranquility because I have love. Peace, love, and gigs. That's what I would say. My advice is peace, love, and gigs. Find tranquility.
The new slogan.
Oh no, that's the old slogan. That is our slogan.
That was the slogan. Wow.
Peace, love, and gigs is what we've said for 20 years. Yeah, and we had the trademark. It's all ours. I know we weren't the first people to use peace and love, but but when I started to apply that and make sure that was prevalent and evident in my life, I felt like I had sort of found purpose and value. It really does come down to peace in my life, love of myself and love of others, and finding the gig. The gig is, to me, that one thing. There's at least one thing that everybody on earth was put here to do. At least one. And what, if it's your job, if it's your career, that thing that you were going to shine at, that thing that you were going to be exceptional at, that thing that you could be known for, the thing that would make you popular and make you famous. And doesn't even have to be that big and grandiose, but it's that thing. Going back to me being a gas station attendant, by golly, I was going to be the best gas station attendant I could be. Give it all you got. Shine.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. It's certainly such an honor, and I had such a great time with you. So thank you.
Me too.
Thank you again so much.
You're a great host, Mike. You're a really good
Thank
podcast
you.
host. I've done a lot of these, and you're great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.